Hi, and welcome to the Revive, Thrive, and Optimize podcast. I'm Billy Weiss, compounding pharmacist, health and wellness expert. Glad you joined us today. As always, producer Mike's behind the scenes, and across from me, Janet, my co-host. Hey, Janet.
Good morning, everybody. When you were saying revive, thrive, and optimize, I just love that.
Yep.
Because, we all want that. We all want to feel revitalized. We all want to thrive, and we all want to live at our optimal, health. And our last podcast, we talked about stomach aches, stomach problems, gut health, leaky gut, indigestion, all that stuff. And you touched a little bit on how our gut and brain health are so related, and our gut and our immune health are so related. And you touched on how 96, I believe you said, % of all autoimmune issues start in the gut. So I thought today a wonderful topic would be on autoimmune diseases, because so many people have them. A lot of them are new. I've never heard of so many people, and especially women. I think somewhere around 70% of autoimmune affects women and not men. And I also read that was due to women being more stressed than men, or women taking care of everyone else except for themselves. So let's just talk about all things autoimmune.
Sure. And I like the fact that you bring up that you like Revive, Thrive, and Optimize. So we probably, I don't know that we've ever done this on any podcast, but the whole idea behind the OptiURX, a lot of people maybe have no idea why OptiURX.
Yeah, talk about why you call it that.
That's the optimal you. We're talking about your health, how you get optimal health for you, and the prescription for it. Now, the ironic thing is, me being a pharmacist, it's the prescription doesn't require an actual prescription.
Not a pharmaceutical prescription.
The prescribing is supplements, lifestyle, the 5 pillars, right? Food,
daily life,
supplements, water, exercise, and sleep. So,
and I think the other big part of that is learning to be the CEO of our own health.
Right.
So we know the science behind, and we want to grab the right things to revive, thrive, and optimize.
I think it's a good thing to just review. Why did we call it OptiURX? And then the Revive, Thrive, and Optimize was really my oldest son, Garrett.
Yeah.
We were trying to think what would be like a catchy tagline, and it was like, well, we want to revive people who are sick. We want to thrive if we're not sick, or if we've revived ourselves, and we want to optimize. Optimal health, right? OptiU. So that's kind of the whole thought process behind it, and the idea was to help people feel, think, and look their best, no matter what age or where they're starting from. So that kind of is just a little background on how we sat around and tried to think forever of a name and a tagline. And you're right. Then we have a couple sayings that are on the wall at the pharmacy where we teach the summits and things, is be the CEO of your own health.
Lose fat, not muscle.
Burn fat, not muscle.
Burn fat, not muscle.
Yeah.
Love
so
that.
Those are really key elements to what we teach, is you need to be educated, and you need to understand how important burning muscle, not burning muscle, but maintaining and building muscle while we burn fat.
And I like the T-shirts.
Yeah, well, good. Thank you.
I've gotten to where I love walking around with my Revive, Thrive, Optimize T-shirts in different colors. And Mike.
Well, I was going to say we have producer Mike to thank for the T-shirts.
Mike who makes the T-shirts.
He's very good at coming up with.
He's a silk screen artist
and making them. Yeah, so things that I can't do.
I need some more T-shirts in some different colors, please. I want a red one.
We probably need to work on some.
I want a red T-shirt.
It's been a while.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's get on to autoimmune.
Yeah. So autoimmunity, if you look at the research, starts in the gut. So what happens is, we've talked about how the gut lining is only 1 cell thick in our latest podcast.
Our gut lining is so tiny, 1 cell thick.
It's very thin. It's very
kind of like
fragile.
A pair of pantyhose.
It's fragile. That's correct. You did a great analogy last week of pantyhose thinking. So when we pull those cells apart, or they get pulled apart by things like gluten, high sugar content, chemicals, glyphosate, atrazine, mold, parasites, bacteria, fungus. There's lots of reasons why these things could be pulled
Tylenol.
Apart. It could be, not so much Tylenol, but ibuprofen.
Ibuprofen, okay.
Yeah, those type of drugs are very hard on the gut lining. And so any non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug like ibuprofen, Aleve, I'm trying to think of the most common names you would find. Motrin, Aleve.
They can literally blow holes in your gut.
They can create, really serious issues. And some of them are prescription and some of them are over the counter today. So we have to think about the consequences of those things. Okay. And so then we have inflammatory things, right? So high insulin, metabolic issues can create this inflammation. And all these factors can contribute to pulling that one cell lining apart, pulling the cells apart. And now things that were designed to stay inside the digestive tract, in the gut, are now able to leak out into the bloodstream. The body then sees that as a foreign invader, and it will turn the wick up on our immune system to try to fight off the invader. And so we will then say, well, we have an autoimmune condition. The body is fighting itself.
It's attacking itself.
It's turning on its immune system against itself.
And when your body attacks itself, you can experience many different types of symptoms, right? Some
Absolutely.
people maybe are getting a stomach ache. Other people are getting a headache. Other people are getting skin rashes.
It can manifest as so many different things, Janet.
And does it manifest differently in different people just because maybe that's just the tendency or the weakness in their body that it goes to their thyroid or their gut?
I don't know that we have any research to tell us that, but that certainly would be a good theory to run on, is that, hey, there's just the weakest point for whatever reason in that person.
Or like joints with arthritis.
And it just happens that way. Okay. I don't know that we know exactly why some people get arthritis and some people get skin conditions and some people have thyroid conditions.
But all those are autoimmune conditions.
Yeah, almost exclusively when you see those things. I don't know why some people get the gut issues. We're not 100% sure. To my knowledge, research has not been able to say, why does that affect Sally this way and Joey this way? I don't know that we know that. We just know that it starts from this things coming out of the gut lining into the bloodstream and activating or turning our immune system on.
Can you be born with an autoimmune disease?
Janet, I don't know of any genetic autoimmune diseases, true genetic autoimmune diseases.
Do children get autoimmune diseases?
Yeah, children can definitely have autoimmune diseases, no question.
Okay.
It's not as common as it is in adults, and it's certainly more common in women than men.
Yep.
But I'm not sure that we know exactly why that is. You know, I don't know why. Is it because the women are caretakers for others? We're not 100% sure. But it does seem to be more common, or women more in tune with their bodies may be part of that too.
And we're all stressed, whether we're a man, a woman, or a kid these days, we're all stressed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a stressful world that we live in. We're around more things, more chemicals, more pesticides, more herbicides, more fungicides, more EMFs, electronic magnetic fields.
So it's not just the body attacking itself, but there's all these foreign invaders attacking us.
It's epigenetics, right? We talk about it's not a genetic thing that's happening to us. It's an epigenetic. In other words, what kind of environment do we put into our body and around our body? And some of this is unavoidable. So we have to take preemptive steps to try to avoid these issues. So when this immune system is turned on, you've probably heard me do this before. I know you have, Janet, but many in the audience have. It's like having a seesaw. And it's like having a heavy kid on one end and a light kid on the other end. Well, obviously it's going to be out of balance, right?
Flip that one kid
One
right
side's
over.
going to be really high and one side's going to be really low. So there's three parts to our immune system. There's TH1. We won't really get into why or what each one does, but TH1, TH2, and then there's the TH regulatory. So
that'd be the middle of the seesaw?
That would be the teeter-totter in the middle.
Okay.
And so I think what happens in autoimmunity is we have this foreign invader from the gut. The body recognizes it as a foreign invader from the gut. Not supposed to be in the bloodstream. And it activates the immune system so that there's a heavy kid on one end and a light kid on the other. What is probably going on, if you really look at the most recent research, is that the teeter-totter, the regulatory part of our immune system, is not up to par. Okay? And so what happens is the modern way of treating autoimmune disease is to give a drug or a flurry of drugs, right? that suppress the entire immune system.
Which to me blows my mind.
Well, so it
you have to suppress your immune system.
Yeah,
then you're susceptible to so many other things, right?
Especially cancers.
And is that like Humira?
Humira is one. There's so many new ones now. You can watch any TV show and watch a commercial about an autoimmune drug.
Okay.
But Humira would be one of the very early ones. Okay. Yes. But so what happens is you think about, you have Th1, Th2, and Th regulatory, part of our immune system. And so those drugs are driving all three of them down, which obviously makes you more susceptible to every bacteria, virus, parasite, cancers. You got to tell them if you're going to travel out of the country. You got to tell them if you're going to take a vaccination. You got to tell them all these things, right?
And if you don't fix that regulatory system, it's never going to be never ending, right?
So the idea that we approach autoimmunity is, let's start to heal the gut, which will then bring the teeter-totter, the regulatory part of the immune system up, which will then help balance the Th1 and Th2, or in other words, make both kids weigh the same on each end of the seesaw.
And then you could start healing once you
not only
get to the source.
Well, think about it, Janet. Not only are you healing, but instead of increasing your chances of all the bacteria, viruses, and parasites and funguses and all those things and cancers, you're reducing your risk of all that. And you're not taking a drug that has an average. Now, remember, the average prescription drug, according to the University of 398.
398 side effects.
According to the University of Stanford School of Medicine, not Billy's opinion, okay? 398 side effects. I'm going to tell you, Humira and all these newfangled autoimmune drugs, it's way more than 398. Those are much more offensive.
So the side effects from the drugs are probably worse than the side effects from your autoimmune,
or they're
compounding it.
The problem is, Janet, I think they're actually compounding the problem, because while their symptoms may improve
temporarily,
short term, they're doing so many other harmful things to their long-term outcomes. And so taking drugs that make me more susceptible to the number 2 killer in America, cancer, in my mind, it just doesn't make sense. It's backwards, right? Especially if there's an alternate path that will allow me to reduce my risk of cancer while I permanently fix my autoimmune symptoms.
And at the same time, I know from working with you, at the same time learning and teaching how to avoid the things that are aggravating it, making it worse. Can we back up and just maybe name what are some common autoimmune issues? What are some of the names, or what are some of the problems? And there's new ones coming out I've never even heard of.
Well, lupus is a big category. Hashimoto's thyroid issues is a big category, probably one of the most common.
Crohn's disease.
You have Crohn's, colitis, IBS,
eczema,
psoriasis, psoriatic arthritis. There's lots, and like you say, they're coming up with new
ankylosing
spondylitis. Yeah, that's one that we've helped people with, certainly. So there's so many of these things today, Janet, that I probably can't name half of them, because I think the drug companies are coming up with new ones all the time to make a drug to say, if you
a lot of skin problems, rashes.
Almost always coming from the gut, almost 100%. So we need to think about, we need to think about the gut health, which is what our last podcast was about. So if you hadn't listened to it, go back and listen. But we can start with some really simple things like the OptiU probiotic and the OptiU digestive enzyme, the Prescriptions Plus GI Protect. Some really simple things that we can do to start to turn the body around.
Okay, but wait a minute. So if they add in your probiotic, your digestive enzymes, your GI Protect, some of the supplements you recommend, are they taking that together with the pharmaceutical that they've been prescribed, or are they, you get rid of one for the other?
No, well, so I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell anybody not to take the drugs that their doctor, nurse practitioner, or physician's assistant has prescribed. I can tell them that there are side effects, and lots of them. And most people already realize that because they feel it when they're taking
no
them.
energy, or they can't sleep.
They know how they feel. So there's no interference with any of these supplements that I would ever recommend, any of the things that I would recommend that would interfere with their ability to continue on their treatment plan. The goal, I would hope, would be to use these natural things, the Opti plan, and be able to discontinue the drug over time, certainly. But there's no interference with any of their drugs using the supplements and the foods and the waters and the exercise and the sleep.
And we just kind of talk about that with antibiotics versus taking probiotics, how to do that. And you said if you have to be on antibiotics, you still need to take your probiotic, but you take it 2 hours after
each dose of the antibiotic.
Your dose, right.
And another thing that needs to be addressed with these autoimmune people outside of their gut health, because the second most important thing in my mind, if you look at the research, to our immune system, number one is the gut for sure, which we've talked about, the leaky gut. But number two is their vitamin D status.
Vitamin D.
We need optimal, not normal, optimal vitamin D levels.
Which is?
I think 60 to 100 nanograms per milliliter is the number we're looking for. I prefer 80 to 100. And so that's something that I think is overlooked in most of these autoimmune patients. Nobody's looking at their gut. Nobody's looking at their vitamin D level. They're saying, here's your Humira. Here's one of your newfangled ones that we have today that have even more side effects.
So many of us have low vitamin D, and a lot of that's maybe not being in the sun. It's more so in the wintertime. But I run into people all the time whose vitamin D levels are in the 20s and 30s.
Oh, I see it lower than that, Janet, all the time.
And how do they get out of bed? Because you have no energy when you don't have the vitamin D. And I remember my recent labs, mine was 86, and I was so happy. And I was like, I feel so much more energy. But one of the things with vitamin D that I was doing incorrectly until I learned from you is I was not taking it with food and with fat. And you want to take your vitamin D when you eat.
It's a great point, Janet, because I'm glad you bring that up, because so many people do. They say, well, I just take it at bedtime, or I just take it first thing in the morning. That's okay, but it's not optimal.
So it's not really working.
Well, vitamin D needs a couple of things to absorb properly. Okay. Number one is it does need food, and more specifically fat, but any food is better than none, because vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. It's one of the few, A, D, E, and K are fat soluble vitamins. So they need some fat in the system, in the gut, to absorb most efficiently. So number one, we need to have it with a meal or with some fat of some kind is absolutely correct. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
And that's just one of the things, for an example, that we learn in your class that you do annually is we get down to the nitty gritty of, if you're going to spend your money on vitamin D, then you want to make sure you're getting it into your body.
Well, you do, and you want to make sure that it has the right vitamin
And it's
K.
got to be the right vitamin D, D with K2.
D with the right K2, correct. And we need to do that. And because that protects us if the vitamin D were to get too high of any ill effects.
And then when you get around all that, you want to make sure that your vitamin D with K is coming from a source that you can trust, that you know where all those ingredients came from.
Well, you're right, Janet, because I have people come all the time and they do my Opti panel, and they've been on 10,000 units, so-called, they think, of vitamin D from Sam's Club or wherever, and their vitamin D is 12.
CVS.
They're not getting any, right. They're really not getting any.
Not going
they can
into
take
their body.
hours and take half the dose, and usually they're at 60 to 80 in just a month or two.
And it's probably just the wrong form altogether.
It's probably not even vitamin D at all if you look at the studies. The 80% chance there's no vitamin D in it.
All right, let's don't go down that rabbit hole.
Not only do you need food to absorb your vitamin D efficiently, but you need adequate magnesium, and you need intracellular or red blood cell magnesium.
Okay.
So the studies show that it takes double the amount of vitamin D to get the same levels in a person that has, if you have adequate magnesium, and let's say 5,000 units would get you to 80.
Okay.
If you had low red blood cell magnesium levels, it would take double. It would take 10,000 units to get a person with low magnesium to 80. It would take double.
Now, I know, I do remember that with magnesium has over 350
right. That's correct.
positive benefits for your body. So magnesium is amazing. A lot of people think you only need to take magnesium if you've got muscle cramping or you can't sleep, but there's so many reasons to take magnesium.
Yeah, so magnesium to me is the number one supplement anybody should ever be on, but they
Helps
should be
your
on
hormones.
the right magnesium. Right.
And I would say that of all the people I talk to, everybody's on a magnesium. They know how important that is now, but they're buying inferior products and it's not working, or it's giving them diarrhea.
Well, a lot of times the magnesium, yes, is a laxative, unfortunately, and they sell it as magnesium, which it is. It's just a salt form that's a laxative. So we're using 5 organic chelated salt forms in the OptiU magnesium. So we're hitting pathways to help the heart, to help the brain, to help the muscles, to help the overall insulin, sugar, metabolism, energy, lots of different pathways, over 350 positive functions from that product.
I have to say that I take 1, 2, 3, 6 or 7 magnesium every day now.
I take 17.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah. But remember, it's the number one, this is off the autoimmunity, but it's the number one rate limiting factor in making cellular energy.
So if you don't have energy,
enough
get
magnesium, you're not going to feel 18,
Yeah.
100%. You're not going to do it, which is my goal.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so getting back to...
We need magnesium, though, to get our vitamin D levels optimal in order to help fight off autoimmunity is where we were going with all this. So the 2 things that are important to get our vitamin D levels optimal are to take the right vitamin D and take it with food, as you said, and to have optimal magnesium levels.
To me, that sounds so much more simple than being on a pharmaceutical drug or an infusion you have to go get every
injections.
week.
Yeah.
Injections, infusions, feeling horrible, and then being terrified during the winter months when everybody's running around with viruses and your immune system is being suppressed.
Yeah.
So taking magnesium and vitamin D sounds a lot better.
Well, remember, we got probiotics, enzymes, multi in there, and some other things. Yep. But the basics, yes, are to start to heal the gut, to optimize the vitamin D, and to reduce the inflammation. And so when we can start to do those things, you'll see people's symptoms begin to get better. Now, we're probably not, Janet, in all actuality, going to make their thyroid just function properly again. We're probably not, okay? So they're probably going to need, and we've talked about this 1,000 times, but we're going to need desiccated porcine compounded thyroid and not levothyroxine or Synthroid is probably not the right method or the path to help your thyroid. However, for the other things like lupus, ankylosing spondylitis, eczema, psoriasis, arthritis kind of things, we can absolutely help their symptoms disappear, go away. We do it a lot.
How many or how often do you see people come to you with autoimmune issues?
It's weekly for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of autoimmunity today, more than ever. And I do think it's because people's guts are destroyed. Their vitamin D is tanked. Their magnesium's tanked. They're eating processed foods. They're filling themselves with gluten and soy and a lot of things that cause
food coloring and pesticides and glyphosates and all these things that we're eating that are destroying our gut.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that are against our body's ability to function properly that we have to be proactive to try to offset a lot of those things. And so that's where, being a good CEO of your own health and starting to take a pathway to help your body correct itself is really important.
I think being able to find the right doctor and being able to talk to your doctor is so important because I've been on a search not just to find the right medical care around here that I need for myself since I move a lot. I had a great set of people that helped me in Los Angeles and then a great set of people that helped me in Asheville. And then moving to Cleveland County, it was searching again to find people who could help me. And one of the things that I have learned from you is to have the courage to ask my doctor questions, to ask to read or see some science, to disagree with my doctor and really put my foot down and advocate for myself. And that is hard to do. And, or to even find a doctor that if I say, hey, will you check my fasting insulin to say, okay, just it
Janet,
blows my mind.
It is really backwards, I think, that we forget that the doctors work for us. We pay them.
And we I don't know why we put them up on some pedestal. Yes, you're brilliant. We thank you that you're doctors and we have the best emergency care in the world.
Absolutely.
But I just want to be able to sit down with my doctor, and thanks to you, you've helped me find the right ones that I can ask questions. They'll show me research. They'll have dialogue with me, and that's just what I need.
Well, it should be about a relationship
Yes.
where you're both after the same goal of trying to help your health be optimal.
Yeah.
But unfortunately,
their hands
the
are tied
physicians
sometimes.
Their hands are tied by the insurance company. Their hands are tied by the hospital system they work for. And remember, they are trained by the pharmaceutical companies, essentially. I mean, they're trained at the schools, but the pharmaceutical companies are funding that training.
Yeah.
And so what they're taught is to use drugs, to use drugs, to use drugs, to use drugs.
A lot of the science that they're teaching has been manipulated.
Oh, absolutely. It's unfortunate that they don't get taught about any lifestyle things in general. They don't get taught about supplements. They're not taught about drug nutrient depletions. They're not taught about the things that I try to help people with.
Well, and I think it's so cool that more and more in your annual class, we're seeing more doctors, dentists, orthopedic surgeons, PAs. People are coming to learn this stuff from you, and then going back out and feeling better, or helping their patients feel better, and they feel better.
Yeah, it's pretty. It is pretty common to see healthcare providers in our summit, which is nice because then they're trying to go out and implement some of these things in their patients, and they do it because they want to help people. I mean, I really think these people want to help people. They just don't know how a lot of times. Yeah. And so it is good to see it. And we're seeing more and more healthcare providers that are starting to do the proper training in bioidentical hormones and these kind of things also.
When I think of medicine, I think of, you have a fellowship in biological and nutrition. Am I saying it right? Biological and nutritional medicine.
Metabolic and nutrition.
Metabolic and nutrition.
Yeah.
Nutritional medicine. And so, when you say that, it's like metabolic disease, what we're eating, all that is our medicine.
That is.
Right? And so
Hippocrates said it, let food be thy medicine.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
I think that's what we need to get back to. So for these autoimmune patients, let's attack their gut, let's attack their vitamin D levels, and let's try to fix the teeter-totter, the regulatory part of the immune system, so that both kids on each end of the seesaw weigh the same. And that's the way that we help people overcome their autoimmunity and get off their Humiras and their other drugs for their
time frame. How long does it take to heal an autoimmune?
Depends on how much the person will commit.
Is it something you will still manage over a lifetime?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're still going to have the propensity to go back if you go back to the old habits.
Right.
But for somebody like Emily, who was somebody your husband Don sent for her spondylitis, was that hers was better in just a few weeks because she was fully committed, and her husband was fully committed.
You guys, she couldn't. Young woman, very healthy, CrossFitter,
very fit.
She couldn't lift her arms. Her feet and ankles were swollen.
It was pretty sad to see.
And she's pregnant with her third now.
And she's doing awesome. Yeah. And oftentimes people with autoimmunity become pregnant. It will flare up because now you have a different human growing inside of you. And she's had, to my knowledge, after talking to her, no issues. So she's doing awesome because she stayed true to the plan that she's learned.
And, and she's got an amazing partner. And when you have someone in your household, in your life, a partner who can support you and go through this journey with you, it is a huge game changer.
That's what I think helped Emily so much, was how much on board her husband Hunter is. Yeah. And so that helps a lot. So Janet, I think the answer to the question is it depends, but most people will start to see changes pretty quickly if they do the right things.
My sister did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what we have on hand for next week.
All right. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.